Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tiffany Feingold. I am the co-founder of Guiding Bright Minds. I launched Guiding Bright Minds 4 years ago, and I am a parent of a neurodivergent child. And as I was going through the journey, I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted. I had no idea where to go, who to turn to, what services were needed, where to even begin. And so, as I was going through that, I tried to find an organization that could help me get started. And when I uncovered that there really wasn't anything that supported parents in narrowing down the scope of the search, providing that guidance and direction. So I launched Guiding Bright Minds to let other parents know that they're not alone, that they don't have to go through this journey alone, that there are people that understand. There are people that care. And so the first thing I did was create a directory of professionals, because it is overwhelming to go to Google and search psychologists or search therapy. You don't even know sometimes what to search. So wonderful providers that I personally meet with, and vet through on my directory to support neurodivergent children, families, parents, the whole tribe of people that support us, and ensure that we are getting the services we need. So if you're not familiar, please go to our website, www.guidingbrightminds.com. We host events, we have different articles, blogs, all kinds of information and resources. I do, before we get started also, and I need to pull up all the details, but next month on December 4th, I am hosting Learning to be the Most Powerful Person at the IEP Table. For many of us who have neurodivergent children, we do require IEP or 504 services for our kids. And we know how working with the schools might not be as collaborative as we like it to be. And so we want to empower parents, and your lens, your advice, your guidance, your direction, your expectations at that IEP table are crucial. So look out on our website. You can also find us on Eventbrite, but we will have Learning to be the Most Powerful Person at the IEP table. I'm excited for that conversation. I'm excited for this conversation as well, because we know that the holidays can be overwhelming. We know that transitions, supporting our children while also supporting our children that are neurotypical, while also supporting our families and friends, some who might be understanding and acknowledge the needs of your neurodivergent children, and others that may not. And we know that can put a lot of pressure on us as parents on how to overcome those obstacles, how to be, both understanding of everyone's needs at the same time of what our needs are as a parent, and how we can navigate through. So I'm so excited to have these two experts here with us today, to walk through and guide us through this conversation and this discussion, because it can be, and if we're not prepared for it, we don't know maybe the best way to resolve some of these issues. So first, let me introduce to you Cindy Spencer. She is the clinical director of Spectrum Services in Lakewood. Cindy's a licensed professional counselor in Colorado, Texas, and New Mexico, a board certified behavior analyst, and a certified therapeutic recreation specialist. Cindy specializes in supporting neurodiversity and provides both psychotherapy and behavior therapy services to support individuals in reducing maladaptive behavior, managing symptoms of anxiety and depression, and skill development, including social executive functioning and independent living. Thank you, Cindy, for joining us. Our other panelist is Susie Goodwine, parent, coach, and founder of Miracles in Parenting. Susie's coaching career began as an elementary school teacher with a solid foundation in early childhood and elementary education practices, policies, and child development. To strengthen her training in the classroom, she became a certified Love and Logic Institute's facilitator. She focuses on supporting parents of children with behavioral challenges to honor their child's gifts rather than seeking to fix them. These strategies create an atmosphere where everyone's needs can be met and disruptive behaviors don't dominate relationships. So thank you both for joining us today. I'm going to kick off. If you guys also want to elaborate on, your experiences, who you are, and what you do, that would be great. So Susie, why don't I start with you?
Sure. Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
Um, I just want to say that with the Love and Logic certification, what I came to know as a mom with two neurodivergent kiddos myself, was that it oftentimes fell short of providing me with the skills and strategies I needed to um, meet my children where they were and are as young adults. And so I went on to create some of my own strategies. So what I love about Love and Logic is that it emphasizes the relationship between parents and children and how to put that first and still be the parent. And so I've taken that and kind of put my own spin on things with that training under my belt. So I just wanted to elaborate on that just a little bit. So I have two, as I mentioned before, I've got two young adult children who are neurodivergent. My son carries 5 different diagnoses of autism, Tourette's, OCD, sensory, and an undefined mood disorder. And my daughter carries a diagnosis of ADHD. And back when she was a little girl, I had her evaluated for autism as well. But 20 years ago, they weren't really diagnosing little girls on the spectrum and didn't really recognize that girls show up differently. So I'll just share with you that if I was a betting woman, my daughter would show up on the spectrum today. So we've had it not only, um, I've lived it, I've experienced it and continue to live it and experience it with my young adult children today. So, oh, Tiffany, I think you're muted.
Sorry, I am. Thank you, Susie. Cindy, anything you want to add about your experience and just how you're supporting the families?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your introduction of both of us. And yes, so I've been a therapist for over 20 years and supporting neurodivergent individuals and co-occurring mental health, both individuals and families, as well as within different systems, such as the family system, the school system, community, employment, things like that. So and what we do here at Spectrum is very unique in that we're a small group of clinicians with experience and expertise in neurodivergence, so ADHD, autism, nonverbal learning disorder, and so on, as well as, co-occurring mental health, anxiety, depression, grief and loss, trauma, things like that. And myself, and our philosophy is to meet individuals where they are at, meet families where they are at, and to be very collaborative, versus coming in with a, protocol or modality. It's like, what, let's talk about where is this individual? So we're looking at the internal experience, what's going on within, as well as what are we seeing externally, which maybe, behaviors and things like that. And then that balance of how do we increase or develop skills and support systems, as well as taking a look at where are the barriers or where there are too many demands. And so all of this, I think, plays really beautifully into what, Susie provides as a service and a support for families as well. And then what this presentation is about, because we all know the holidays are quite something. So I would like to provide that segue into our presentation and, bringing our experience together to really help individuals and families at this time of year.
Yes. And I want everyone to know a copy of the recording will be sent out. I am going to put some talking points and bullet points together as well, just as kind of a guideline for you. And, when we have a panel, just to allow you to also share some of your experiences and ask questions. So if you could use the Q&A section at the bottom, please put your questions in there. I'm gonna kick it off though with just highlighting, and we broke it down into 3 categories when we look at the holidays. First, the preparation. And we as moms and caregivers know that you can prepare a lot, but you also have to prepare for when it doesn't go as prepared. And I think that is the key to the success is how are you going to handle when you know that a situation is going to occur, a family member is going to make a comment, we're not going to get out the door in the time, and those are crucial. So the first section that we want to break down and talk about is preparation. And so I want to kick it off, Susie, with you when we talk about the preparation for the holidays. And we know some of the sources of stress for parents might be financial, busy schedules, managing family expectations. So as parents, how can we, what is your advice on the sources of stress for the parents from that lens of preparing?
Well, in terms of prep, I think that getting into the mindset of you ask yourself the question, how do I get myself and my child set up for success? Because just getting your child set up for success doesn't cover it, and just getting you set up for success doesn't cover it. Or just getting the family members or the friends that are coming over set up for success doesn't cover it. We have to consider the whole package. And so in doing that, one of the things that I have found is that asking yourself the question, how much is too much? So do I have too much on my plate? How much can my child handle? How can I get my child set up for success? To be able to get through the Thanksgiving meal. So since Thanksgiving is just next week, let's use that as an example. If your child is struggling with texture issues or doesn't like the food, I found that with my family, they very much wanted it to look a certain way. So there was this picture in my family's head about what things should look like and what the holiday should look like. And then along came my son, and things have been going smoothly until, and then all of a sudden a wrench was kind of thrown into the production, and he didn't want to sit at the table. And I felt like a bad mom because I was being judged that in a way that that as the oldest in my family, people were looking to me. My siblings were looking to see what it was going to be like to have children and bring them around the family table. And I felt oftentimes like I fell short as a mom, that my son was disappointing other people, and I had comments. It wasn't just that I made those assumptions. Comments were made, and so I would feel really bad about it. So knowing that it was coming, I was able to start to plan ahead and let my family know, hey, he can't sit at the table, not for long. So if there's something you want him to participate in, let's get that done in the first 5 minutes. And after that, I'll be bringing food for him. You need to know I'll provide his food. He's going to get up and move around. And I created a little quiet bag for him that had activities in it that he could play with and be entertained. And then he would come back and join us and then leave when he'd had too much. And it wasn't that he was being bad or naughty. He was, number one, age appropriate, first and foremost. And number two, trying to figure out how to use the strategies that we'd created at home in an environment that wasn't his own and be successful. And so, and to be able to honor that. And all of that takes planning ahead and prepping, and sometimes a conversation or 2 or 5.
Yeah, yeah. And Cindy, I'm going to jump to you before I do, just to add, with my own experience with my son, and as a parent, just to share and I was liberated when I finally got to that realization, when I started forcing my son at this table, and then he was louder, he was dysregulated. He wasn't happy being there. Others weren't happy with him being here. And it finally hit me like, why am I forcing him to do this? It's about him and his needs and not everyone else's needs. They're the adults. My son's the child. And why should I expect him to behave better than the adults and not understanding or accepting what his needs are? And when I had that conversation with my family, saying if you're not happy with this, we're not gonna come, or you don't need to be. I'm like, and it was so freeing to be able to just advocate for him and say, this is what he needs, and there's nothing wrong with it. So Cindy, how, it's hard to have that conversation. How would you advise parents in preparing to be that liberated? And I don't feel anxiety with like next week is Thanksgiving. I would be swirling already, so many emotions going on. But because I set that expectation and I'm sticking to that expectation, it's been amazing. So how can parents prepare for that?
I mean, great. I definitely want to build upon what you guys have shared and what Susie has shared. And, my first thought is, really thinking about, Susie had mentioned, how do we set them up for success? And what does that success look like? So that might be success for me using, Thanksgiving, as Susie mentioned, is my child being able to be there and connect with people that are there. I could care less if he has Aunt Bertie's, sweet potatoes. Hey guys, he's having chicken nuggets. Our priority right now is like, he wants to be here with everyone. So that's success for me. Or she wants to be able to play with her cousins. That's success for my child. I'm not trying for it to be successful for everyone else. As Tiffany was saying, I need it to be successful for my child as well. And granted, we're not trying to come in like a hurricane. Like, we recognize everyone's trying to be there together. It's just like, how do we create this? And what is that definition? And so really, once we kind of have an idea of what we want that to look like, I think that we can then align our actions in preparation for that holiday along those lines. So let's say it is, I want my child to be able to be present and engage with family members. Okay, so we're bringing, as Susie mentioned, a bag of activities that either he or she can use, independently, or they can share with their cousins or their aunts and uncles or grandparents, whoever. And so that, and then the other key thing that some of my families do are like, even though the kiddo is not interested in the meal, they're interested in the jobs. So like, passed out the napkins, or look at what I've got. Like those little things that give them a sense of importance in this huge family, event. So those little jobs, little helper things, activities for them to engage in. And then when prepping family members for this, letting them know like, hey, my son Bobby, he's really excited to see everyone. I'm bringing activities for him, but I also want to let you know that we're bringing some games. And so if any of you would like to really engage with him, we are going to have Connect Four, we're going to have Uno, we're going to have, this and that, and he loves these games. So, please feel welcome to join him in that. That would feel really special. He won't be sitting with us at the dinner table. He's going to be doing drive-by chicken nugget grabs while we're all having dinner. So here's what this is going to look like. So it's not just prepping them for what your child needs, which is the most important, but it's also offering them opportunities to connect with your child. Versus like, hey, I'll just keep my child busy over here. It's inviting them to be like, come connect. We are a family. So I wanted to throw some of those things in there as well.
I love that. I love that. And also I think one of the areas that you hit on was, having a job. I know so many parents that I talk to of neurodivergent children, one of their love language is helping, is being involved somewhere and somehow. So even finding, like you said, handing out the napkins, and that can be prepared, whether you're hosting or going somewhere else. can we have this one job? And then that level of importance and accomplishment that that child feels can go a long way in just the overall experience and happiness through that process. So I love that aspect. And for those of you that are participating, again, if you have any questions you'd like to ask in the Q&A section, please feel free to ask. And I'm just going to make sure that that's there, that you can, yes, ask questions and have that of areas that you want to know more or have experienced and would like to be addressed. So also under the preparation for the holidays comes, family traditions, prioritizing how to put that together. What should that look like? Again, how do we go about doing that as parents that can be successful?
Boy, I think that one of the things that I came to realize with my son is that we had a lot of family traditions when I was growing up as a little girl. And they were traditions that I really was committed to providing and carrying on with my own children. And then I think it was my son's third Christmas, and I thought that there's no way this is going to happen this way, the way that I had in mind. So being open and flexible to changing things up and finding things that worked for him and that were important for me. And I think for me, one of the things that I was helpful was to kind of sit down and get clear about why a certain tradition was important. Was it Did it have to do with my family heritage, or was it about making a memory? If it was about making a memory, I could do that in a way that would serve my son. And if it was about our family heritage, were also other times throughout the year that we could support that, that we could support our family traditions and celebrations, not just during the holidays. And so being kind of picking and choosing and making sure that he wasn't in overload, which was causing me to then not be in overload and be able to be more present with him than being driven by an agenda. Because for me, there was always an agenda behind the tradition. Like it had to look a certain way. I had to pull it off. I had to include certain people. So, so being able to really understand why the tradition was important to me helped to clarify what pieces do I really want to address over the holidays and what pieces can I address other times throughout the year and spread it out a little bit.
I love that. And even taking the time, because I think that's where there's so much hustle and bustle and going here, and you're like, well, we have to string the corn, to decorate the tree because that's what we've always done. And but pausing long enough, even like a couple minutes, just to sit down and say, why is this important? Why is this? Did I even enjoy it as a kid? All the pricks in my hand because of those stupid needles. I mean, like really evaluating, was that fun? So I love that you highlight that we can take the time to say, okay, instead of 20 different traditions, let's do one. I mean, let's just try one. Let's just figure out again what's going to be enjoyable for the entire family. And everyone's input and insight, and have it be a collaborative kind of discussion, which makes everyone feel important. Because I think that's where, when we have additional children, neurodivergent, neurotypical, all these different opinions and perspectives, that we do take into account that everyone's opinions need to be validated and heard, but that can be difficult too. But Cindy, what else would you add as far as, preparing for those traditions?
Absolutely. I think that, a few things to consider would be one, adaptability. Is there anything that we can adapt about this tradition to make it more, even more interesting or more inclusive, less stressful? Anything about that tradition that we can adapt? The other part is, shifting into inclusivity. How can we include our child and the family in this tradition and making it our own? Or maybe this child's role in this tradition looks differently and they can choose how they want that to look. And so I think inclusivity, adaptability, and then also not being afraid to omit things. If it's something that we really feel like the family needs to honor, and there's not a particular way this individual, feels they want to engage in it, like being able to be okay with that. There are families that I have worked with that I thought have brilliantly broken up that Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday rather than going to like giant gatherings, have invited segments of the family over for smaller gatherings in between. So that coming together is happening, but not happening in a super overwhelming way. So there are ways that I think traditions can be adapted so that not, they're still included as part of like the ongoing family, for generations, but also can look differently as well.
Yes. And so the other area just in this topic, and then we're going to move on to the next section, which is talking about management while in it. But simplifying the holiday preparations, like prioritizing tasks, delegating responsibilities. What does that look like? Because I think sometimes I know I do this where it's just easier if I do it. I prepare it, I get it done, I figure this out, and then I'm swirling, I'm going around versus again, how do we just really prioritize? So I'd love to get you guys' thoughts and perspective on how the best way to manage those and make it again enjoyable so us as parents can enjoy as well.
I think that one of the things that helped me to prioritize was being clear about my intention, like really taking some time during every morning or every afternoon when my kids were in quiet time, or my kids stopped taking naps, just so you know, at like 18 months. It was a killer. So, so we still had quiet for many years after that because I just needed that time to be a good mom the rest of the day. But I needed to refill my bucket. So many times that was the time that I would take and kind of get my head straight and figure out, what am I out to create? What is my intention? What is my purpose around this? And and so one of the things that I did for myself, and I realized that it's too late this year to do it. And back then, this was 20 years ago, just so that to put it into perspective, we weren't we weren't ordering gifts online. We actually went to the store to do our shopping. Had it, not everything, we didn't have everything delivered. So I would kick my Christmas shopping out in July, so that when we made that trip to the mall to go see the lights, which my son really loved and wanted to do, that's all we were there for, is we'd see the decorations and lights, and when he'd had enough, we could go. I didn't have to still stand in line to purchase that gift that I didn't have a backup for for someone. So so being able to have him lead me in terms of his tolerance level and his ability um, to be able to enjoy what we were out doing. Now it made a world of difference for me. So anything that I could do ahead of time. And then to Cindy's point, and yours too, Tiffany, that you addressed earlier, was including them. So we pulled out the wrapping paper and I let them wrap, and things didn't look the way they did it under my Christmas tree when I was a little girl, but it didn't matter. They had so much fun doing, pulling out the wrapping paper and playing and wrapping up all the gifts. And so we made sure that I made sure that they were enjoying it and having fun. And if they weren't, I shifted gears. I was able to shift gears. And certainly we didn't have as many Christmas cookies, and we didn't have as many, because I just didn't have the time to prep for all of that. And that wasn't where my brain really went to. How do I make the memory? I really want to make the memory. And what does that look like? And I came to realize in all of the prep work, that it was the little things that made the memories, not so much the big things all the time. So it was the consistency in the little things that my kids remember now when they talk to me about it, or we have chats about it, about their childhood. Turns out it was mostly the little things and not so much the big things that made the memories.
Yeah. Cindy, what would you like to add to that?
I definitely would add validate the simplicity and the little memories. Also, where can we offload or outsource things? And where can we just let it go? I know for a lot of us, like we open the garage or go into the attic and we haul out all the bins with all of the lights and the blow up things and the decorations and the whole thing. And it's like, you know what? We don't have to put that pressure on ourselves that everything in every one of these bins needs to be set up. It's sort of like just pacing yourself through the day and going with the flow. I loved Susie's example of like, we could make Christmas cookies, or we could have milk and Oreos in front of the Christmas tree and read a cool book. That's okay too. And so it is those memories and really tagging back into what do we really value? What do we really want out of this holiday together? And some years are not going to look like the previous years. Some years it's not going to be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation light display. Some days it might be just some twinkle lights on the front banister, and that's where it is, or a poinsettia somewhere. So, and that's okay too. So as you guys were talking about this, and especially with the cadence with which Susie was explaining it, is exactly that. It's just like pace it out. Versus like, okay, it's the day after Thanksgiving. I've got to get all of these boxes checked and unpacked and do all the things. And I have 24 days to do it. And so, yeah, it's just really like, you know what, let's just start with December 1st. And we're just going to take a step each day, whatever we feel that we can do, and to continue to bring the holiday together.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
If I could just add, I would just love to add a point here, and that is, I think that when we feel overwhelmed, our children also feel overwhelmed because they're looking to us for guidance and how the world is occurring for them. And so I just went to my great nephew's third birthday party last weekend, and he had this handful of helium-filled balloons, and he was running through the house with them. Not my house, but my sister's house. He was running through the house with them, and I was kind of going like this because the balloons were hitting things along the way, and I thought, oh my gosh, something's going to get broken, or he might trip, and he just got himself so wound up, and it just took me back to, I thought, were my kids that way? And really, it's interesting to see every child is different. And I love the experience with my great nephew. He had such a great time last weekend. My son, after his birthday, looked at me and said, it's time to pop the balloons, which shocked me because I always thought that he would, my initial thought was that he would enjoy having some leftover party supplies and all of that to play with. But it was way too overwhelming for him. He was like, the party's over, the balloons have to go. Like, we need everything back to normal. So I think that observing and making sure to bring in that level of normalcy that happens outside of the holidays is really important and grounding for kids. I think it helps to ground them a sense of normalcy during the holidays. So when we're too overscheduled or we're too busy or too distracted by all of the decorations and all of the activities and all of the events, all of the parties, that our kids, they don't have a place to plant their feet. They need a place to plant their feet. That's what I
Yeah.
found with my own.
Yes, I love that. I love that. The next section I want to jump into, management while in it. And this is one that can be tricky and overwhelming, but setting boundaries and, you know, and hugging versus not hugging. And I just had that epiphany a few weeks ago where I'm like, especially with the grandparents, let's hug them, let's have, and then I was like, oh, why am I forcing that? What do you guys say when it comes to setting appropriate boundaries?
Yeah, I think with my kids, I realized to hug or not to hug, that is the question. Do I force the hug? Do I force the, like they avert the kiss on the on the mouth and try to catch it on their cheek, and they walk away going, ugh. With kids that have sensory issues, that can just be enough to send them right over the top. So we really focused in on other ways to say hello and to listen to your body and honor. I don't really want a hug, and that's okay, but I'll give you a fist bump or I'll wave from back here. Good to see you. I'm so happy to see you. So being able to honor where our children are and let them set some boundaries for themselves, I think is really, really important. And then I think it's our job as parents to support our kids in that rather than pushing them outside of their comfort zone. Because already they're most likely in overload or overwhelm with the things that are happening over the holidays.
I would agree. I think, in a lot of these situations, the situation, the setting, and the people are unfamiliar to a degree. They're not the people they're around every day. They're not the places that they're in every day. They're not the places where they eat every day or play. And all of those things are expected to happen in this like unusual situation with people they know, but they're still not super familiar, in a place they may know and is still not super familiar. And so, being able to again like prime the family members, even if it's just like walking in the door and saying, hey, she would like to give everyone her special handshake or everyone her high five, or he would like to actually do a fist bump, or he's got a little like dancey, whatever that thing is, and prep your child beforehand. Hey, people might want to hug you. How do you feel about that? What would you like to have happen? If your child's unable to really verbalize that, then sort of preparing everyone as well for like, it's a little overwhelming when we first walk in the door. So we're going to need about 20 minutes to really warm up. And then once we've kind of like settled into a spot, then maybe, one at a time, people can like greet and approach this child or allow the child to greet or approach them. Because that is a lot walking in the front door on the holidays and everyone's like, ah! Whoa. So I love the idea of kind of warming up once we're in there, letting everyone know that's what we're doing. And then kind of easing into that. And then even, if you're able to do so ahead of time, letting everyone know how we're going to navigate those boundaries around, physical affection, things like that, and letting them know like there are things that they really love to talk about. This is a great way to engage in a conversation, and they are really into dinosaurs right now. So, I think that also then invites the family to consider their own approach versus forcing, those ginormous bear hugs with, auntie's kisses all over the face.
Yes, thank you. And we do have a question I want to go ahead and read. Love to get your guys' thoughts, like how to deal with family members and all the critics on how we should parent our kids. Also some family members have become autism experts and they feel like they know what is missing and needed. Ah, yes.
It's a big one. Oh man. I would say, so a lot of that is, focusing on the individual and what you feel is appropriate redirection in regard to the conversation, and acknowledging that this is a unique situation. Like, you're seeing Jack in this environment who, and this is really unusual for him. And so this is not like you're seeing him at 8 a.m. getting ready for school or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And letting them know that ahead of time, and also, saying, hey, I'm not really ready for that conversation right now, or I don't feel like conversations around that this is the best time. Having kind of like some canned scripted responses where you could warmly but gently, acknowledge and express appreciation for the fact that they care enough to want to collaborate with you, but that's not the moment. And also saying, I hear your knowledge about this diagnosis or that diagnosis. However, we are working on a plan that really works for Jack or for Jane, and this is what's working for us today. A lot of people feel like, yeah, I've read this book, and if you just follow this protocol and this recipe every day, it's like, yeah, we're working with a human being who's going to, be in one status at 8 a.m. and a whole other status by 1 o'clock. So, or maybe 8:15. And so really kind of preparing yourself like that for a script, a way to gently redirect that conversation for yourself. But I'm going to pause there because I think Susie may have some ideas to add to that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Cindy. And I've been there and done that, to be honest with you, with my own family. And one of the things that I started doing was acknowledging their concern and care. So I'd say, I hear that this is a concern and that you care enough to say something. Thank you so much for that. So I would turn it around so that I could acknowledge that they were trying to, that they wanted to be seen and heard, and that their input, that I had heard it, and thank you. And sometimes I would say, that's something to think about for next time. Right now, I'm going to get my kiddo stabilized, and and that's where my focus is. And then the other thing that I would do sometimes is, if it was appropriate and my child could handle it, I would say, you know what, when he's in this space, this is what we do. Would you like to join us or learn how to do it? And so I would invite them in, rather than, kind of putting up a wall, which, to be honest with you, was my go-to, was to put up the wall. It's like, I can't take this. I can't hear it. I can't handle it right now. Right now, I'm feeling I've got all these emotions myself, and my child is really struggling. And um, so I just think that making sure that we honor ourselves and our children in that moment, and inviting someone to come in a way that around those boundaries, can be really beneficial and helpful in terms of family relationships outside of what's happening with you and your child.
And I just want to add, because, I think that is probably what gives so many of us parents the most anxiety, is because there's those family members and friends that are experts that, see this, or their only, show they've ever watched was, what's the one that everyone Rain Man, or different things. And there's these assumptions, and we see the looks, hear the comments, and it's tough. And that's where I think, to best smile and nod, and it's hard though. I get it, Marilyn, and thank you for asking that question, because that is a constant struggle. And then working constantly to set those boundaries, to set those expectations, and to have the conversation. And that's where I think, in that section, when I think about just preparing ahead of times, is having the conversation. And, there was one family event where it was actually a family member that, started to see where I would have conversations just about experiences and working, with my son and the circumstances. And she actually stood up in one event, like, is this conducive for so-and-so, like my son? Is this gonna be a great, to the whole family? And like, it was great to have somebody else stand up and take the initiative to say, if this isn't gonna be a good environment, and then I kind of like, you feel bad because it's like all catering to my son. But again, we're all adults, and why can't we shift how we want to do something in the need of a person who doesn't have that control? And so
Right.
just, looking at it from that sense of just understanding. And and one thing when I do talk to parents, and normally I say we need to take the blinders off as a society and look, but I put my blinders on. Like, I'm not, what, these people who don't get it, who may make comments or look at me, and Susie, I love your, what would you say, you'd look in the mirror every time you'd go in the grocery store, you'd have a mantra you'd say, because we need to toughen and let those go. But what would you say when you'd walk into the store, if you don't mind sharing that?
No, not at all. I would pull my visor down in the car and I'd look at myself in the mirror and say, I have not come to the grocery store to make long-lasting relationships with the people here. I've come to do my groceries.
Yeah.
So that's what I've come to do. And I got to that point, to be honest with you, because my son had a meltdown and I was on top of him in the grocery store one day. And a woman came up to me and said, get your animal under control. And I about lost it. And I just decided that my focus really needed to be on my son. So what did I need to do to get myself prepped for that, knowing that there were people out there that were ready and willing to give you unsolicited input.
Yes.
And that often is about, I was going to speak to that, whether it's family members, people in the grocery store, and that they're, again, that default that Tiffany was talking about there is like those are expectations that they have. And that's not why we're here right now. I'm not here to, comply with your expectations about how I should do this. I'm here to meet my child where they're at and support them in the best way possible. Susie, I love what you shared about like inviting them, like we're going to go in here and we're going to play a game just in the bed, in the room here, and just like, get some quiet time, or we're going to read this book. Would you like to join us? And that's okay if you don't. One thing I wanted to highlight, I noted in the chat, and I know we have just about 10 minutes left, but I did note in the chat, like there were a lot of really great contributions around whether or not kids should be, basically encouraged even, or more intensely forced to provide hugs and affection to people that they basically identify as strangers, even though they're supposed to be familiar family members. And really, again, coming back to priming family, either before the event or once you arrive, exactly how we're going to handle that, and that allowing your child to say no, like I am just going to stand back and hang out, and I may wear my coat for 10 minutes and no one needs to comment about that either. And, just really allowing them that time, one, to warm up, but two, like not for people to continue to place certain expectations on them, like come sit by me, or come try this, or come give me a hug, and allowing them to say no and supporting them and saying, you know what, I don't think that he's ready for that right now, but thank you for inviting him to do that, or sit next to you, or whatever the case may be. Another thing that often comes up too is, like, as we all know, we have the kiddie table and the adult table, and that doesn't always work out real well for our kids, especially when they're in uncomfortable situations with unfamiliar people. And so being prepared to be flexible with that. These holidays come with all kinds of expectations. And I think really one of the best things we can do is prime our children and prime everyone else in the family about how things are going to go.
Yes.
Yes.
And so as we come to a close, I think let's talk about after recovery during and after. So going through all this, we got to prepare, we got to manage while we're in it, got to set the appropriate boundaries, trying to figure that out, and I go to back to, the question, like preparing yourself that, what, Aunt Joy's gonna say something, she always does. So I need to be prepared now, and here's how I'm gonna say it in phrase, and sometimes when you're in the heat of it, it kind of might skew, but just, the heart of the intention of, what you are doing the best for your child and your children and your family. And that to me empowers me every day, because it's the love I have for him, the love I have for that support, and that's what matters. And if there's people who don't get that or understand that, um, I just, that's another conversation about how much I want them in my lives, but that's why you don't see them every day except for the holidays, and that's why it adds more stress. But how do we recover after? Like, have a plan how to support your child, the self-care, the burnout, like what do we do as it all ends?
I shared earlier, my son was like, pop all the balloons. This needs to be over.
Done. Happy birthday is over. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that we need to go through and pop all the balloons. Anything that brings us back to normalcy or helps us to be grounded again. So if it's pull out the magazine as an adult and read an article, take some time to ourselves, pour yourself a glass of water, drink a cup of tea. With our children, I think one of the things that gets us back to that normalcy place is observing our routines and schedules over the holidays. I think that helps to keep them grounded. And then front loading information for them, I think aids in recovery and prep. And that is to prepare them for what's coming, and then ask them, what will fill your bucket? What would you like to do afterward once this is all over? And honor their requests so that they feel like they've been seen and heard also. And of course, we want them to be seen and heard throughout the entire the holiday season. I don't intend to imply that. I just am thinking that it's really important to make sure that they're advocating. We walk around and say, you need to learn how to advocate for yourself. But we need to have the listening ears and provide the space for them to advocate too. So if they say, I don't want to go over to my friend's house, or I don't want to go do this, I think we really need to pay attention to that. That's self-advocacy. And it may be that they're telling us in their way that they don't have the bandwidth to do it. We just did this. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of the holidays are about, stacking everything, right?
Yeah.
And so when thinking about the holidays and the aftermath, the other thing considering too is that for the last month, things have been really ramping up. It's been exciting. There's been things at school. There's been things, the lights are in the neighborhood. Like all of this really exciting stuff has been happening. We're going to a musical. We're doing this. We're doing that. And then January comes and it's gone. And so we kind of have to be ready for that crash too. So speaking of what Susie was talking about in really trying to maintain some normalcy, and then referencing what we were discussing earlier, is like creating a cadence of things versus feeling like we got to do the Christmas razzle dazzle every day, even every weekend. Like, really just thinking about like, what is a great sort of pace? We're like, maybe we're doing something super fun on Saturday and Sunday is chill. Maybe like, and this is, how we're gonna navigate this so that it is a pleasant pace, it's an enjoyable, everyone's able to fill their cup. And then as Susie was referencing, looking for those signs that things are a little too much, not just over the course of time, but also in individual moments. What are the signs that your kid has had too much? Maybe we're going to go do, the driving through the lights, but he doesn't want to get out and then go in the gingerbread house. That's okay. Or maybe we don't want to go do all of this and that, but maybe we're okay with just driving by and looking at it. whatever there is, being prepared too for like, even if we only last 10 minutes, that's okay too. We can go back to the car, we'll take a picture and we'll roll. So really being able to flex those expectations as well, pacing yourself, pacing the family, and then preparing for afterwards, and even kind of pacing that like phase back into everything that's coming up.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, stair stepping down so that we've built up to this excitement. We're operating up here, and then January hits, and it's a long fall down. So if you can extend some of the traditions and the fun stuff out into January and slowly stair step down, I've found that to be successful too. I think it helps because it's hard. It's hard to be in it, and it's hard when all the fun stops.
Yes.
Activity and the buzz, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a long way to fall.
Yeah. Well, Cindy and Susie, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your time. Thank everyone for joining us. I know there's a lot that goes into the holidays, and just remember, give yourself grace, self-care. Whether it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I used to start with my own 2-minute breaks, starting somewhere just to give yourself time to breathe. Pat yourself on the back for being here, for inquiring. And you know what we do every day is not easy, but we do it. And I wouldn't change my son's brain for anything in the world. Loving him, loving what he is, and supporting him gives me, it's gonna make me cry, but it gives me the best joy in the world. And so let's just support each other as moms, as parents. And that person that you see might be disheveled in the store, give them grace, smile, and ask if they need help versus the judgment. So thank you all for being here. Susie and Cindy, love you. Thank you so much for all of that you guys. All right. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.